Bob, why don't we start with you? What's so wrong with fracking?
Well, it could play a role in the future if it replaces imports of liquefied natural gas, which are expensive and have a higher environmental footprint. But the discussion about fracking at the moment is a dangerous distraction. So let me describe. Let's remind people what fracking is. It's short for hydraulic fracturing. It means you put high-pressure fluid down boreholes, you shatter the rock and let gas come into the hole and it can be extracted. But when you put that high-pressure liquid down and it shatters the rock, that doesn't really cause too many problems at the top. But what it can do is go into pre-existing faults and cause them to slip, causing earthquakes. The moratorium was introduced in 2019 because it was decided that you couldn't rule out earthquakes of magnitude 3 or more which could damage buildings nearby to the fracking site. And that was the reason for introducing the moratorium. When Jacob Rees-Mogg lifted the moratorium, he published a report by the British Geological Survey. It said that the risk had not reduced, but Jacob Rees-Mogg argued that people who live near fracking sites should be prepared to put up with the risk for the better national interest.
So, Rob, I mean, it's not just Bob who's saying that about fracking. Even Chris Cornelius, the geologist who founded Quadrilla Resources, said that the geology of the UK was unsuited to widespread fracking compared to the US because UK shale is heavily faulted and compartmentalised, making it much harder to exploit. So isn't that an open and shut case? It's nice in theory, but in practice it's never going to work in the UK.
Well, the point is that we have got companies, both Quadrilla, the existing Quadrilla management, and INEOS, who want to give this a go and think that there's real potential for doing this. And I think in those circumstances, I think we should allow them the opportunity to get on with it and try. At the end of the day, the only people who are going to lose money out of doing that are the companies themselves. And as long as there's reasonable protections for local residents where there is damage, then I think we should go ahead. The matter is so urgent that we have reliable, locally sourced forms of natural gas, which is not just about energy, but it's about things like fertilizer, about carbon dioxide production for your beer, all sorts of different things as well that natural gas is absolutely vital for. That we should do everything we can. It's in our national interest to pursue this and see what we can find. And I think that the reserves there are certainly very, very promising, and that if we can overcome the technical and geological problems, then I think that this could be very valuable for the country in the future. But we can't do that with a national ban as we have at the moment. What we need is sensible rules to allow those companies to explore the opportunities.
So, Bob, in the national interest there, and also when you look at the US, who by sort of fracking have slashed their carbon dioxide emissions, they've turned a struggling sort of country with its energy sort of into an exporter rather than an importer. There are benefits there, and at the start it seemed to me that you would be willing to do it, if not now, sometime in the future. So you're not saying no, if I was to understand you correctly.
That's right. It could play a role. But remember, the US is not the same as the UK. And I
appreciate that.
40 times the area, 5 times the population. The wide open plains of Oklahoma are not the same as the Preston New Road in Blackpool where they were fracking. So, but it's
there
a
are
dangerous...
people living close to where the fracking is taking place in the state, so there is a close proximity. Okay.
Indeed, but they also know that there's an earthquake risk, and if local communities are willing to consent, then fine. But let me explain why this is not going to help us with our current problems. Even if we started fracking today, on the most optimistic projections by the industry, we might be, in 3 years' time, extracting 57 billion cubic feet of natural gas each year. Sounds a lot, but remember, we used 2.2 trillion cubic feet of gas each year. So that amount of shale gas would be less than 3% of our annual use. It will also be, compared to 9 billion cubic feet of gas that is imported by Europe, including Europe, every day, and it's that we have got to displace. You're not going to make any difference to prices or our security in the near term. That's why we should be talking about energy efficiency. That can really help us deal with our problems on the shore.